Good morning. It is Wednesday, October the 16th, and this is The Drill. Thank you very much. I'm Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, because I'm the only one who makes the presumption for the status quo. My podcast is about being a true conservative and using true conservatism to beat the left each and every day. My podcast is made possible by Spreaker.com. It can be heard on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. My email address is storytimes@hotmail.com. I'm on Twitter at Ronald Hardgrove and on Facebook at The Drill. I started my socio-political odyssey as a lefty. When I was a teenager, I liked the left. And I liked the left because it was lenient and permissive. The left's message was, if it feels good, do it. So I did. I wore my hair long and my morals loose. I engaged in petty vice and associated with people who engaged in vice. People who used drugs, gambled, consorted with prostitutes, stole, and cheated. Be cool was the slogan that I lived by. When I became an adult, I realized that there was more to life than having fun. I cast my first vote for a conservative Republican, and that was when I became attracted to Republican conservatism. I admired Ronald Reagan, read William F. Buckley Jr., joined the United States Air Force, and listened to Rush Limbaugh. By carefully choosing what to watch, listen to, and read, by refusing to associate with common criminals and ne'er-do-wells, by being aware of and resisting left-wing counterculture, and by using my intellect to defeat psychological bullying and intimidation, I will not only win, I will never lose. The purpose of my broadcast is to convince you that true conservatism is different from and better than issues-based conservatism. Today I'll start the podcast by describing the platform, or at least part of the platform of the true conservative, then peruse the headlines critiquing articles for credibility, and after that I'm going to read Our Election System versus Pure Democracy, an article from AMAC magazine, and then follow that up with more about philosophy and culture. All that when I come back. Thank you. The platform of a true conservative is at least A, a return to the gold standard, B, doing away with HMOs, and C, a return to non-profit news, and lastly, a superpower foreign policy. In the coming days, I'm going to go ahead and explain those in more detail as to why they are important and why they are true conservative planks in the platform. And when I return, I'm going to go ahead and browse the headlines. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to go ahead and browse some of the headlines. And I Google usually the name Trump. And that usually gives us all kinds of interesting articles from which to choose. So, today we've got from NBC News, Cuomo signs law aimed at weakening Trump's pardon power. The Washington Post, Trump stuns Harry Dunn's parents, says woman in crash. Well, let's see how this goes. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Trump stuns Harry Dunn's parents, says woman in crash that killed their son is nearby and able to meet. So, this is from London by Jennifer Hassan. Parents of British teenager Harry Dunn met with President Trump at the White House on Tuesday, only to be told that the woman British police say was involved in the car crash that killed their son was in the same building and ready to meet them. So what? I don't understand why they bothered with that. So what? Never before seen Trump tax documents show major inconsistencies. The Washington Post, 4 critical consequences of former Trump aide's testimony. The New York Times, 6 takeaways from the October Democratic debate. Newsweek, Lindsey Graham still believes refusing subpoena is impeachable. CNBC, doubts rise about Trump's claim of China's promise to purchase more U.S. farm goods. USA Today, Turkey's leader rebuffs U.S. call for Syria ceasefire, says he'll meet Pence, not Donald Trump. CBS News, impeachment inquiry latest. Biden defends himself from Trump's attacks at the Democratic, so-called Democratic, or what do they call it? Debate, so-called debate. Slate, family of British teen killed in a car crash, felt ambushed. So, let's see. See if there's anything interesting in here that's not blatantly anti-Trump. Aimed at weakening Trump's pardon power. Let's try this. NBC News, this seems like this might be something interesting. It is by Deborah Gregorian, and I'm going to read here. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo signed a measure Wednesday that would allow the state to pursue charges against people who have received a presidential pardon, a law seen as a direct shot at President Donald Trump. Multiple ex-Trump aides and associates are imprisoned or facing legal scrutiny in New York. The president also is facing numerous federal, state, and congressional investigations related to his administration campaign and business dealings. So, so far, most of what they're talking about here is rather self-evident. Their main source is New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, and so they name him as the source. I see this as another attempt by the left to increase pressure on President Trump. Their MO is always to bluff. They don't want to destroy anybody. Now, it sounds counterintuitive with everything that they're doing, but they really want people to destroy themselves. They don't want to destroy the country. They want the country to destroy itself. That's why they engage in all the kinds of psychological tricks and tactics that they do. If they see you in the hallway at work, they're going to come over and try to provoke you. Why? Because they want you to throw a temper tantrum. And then what happens? Then you end up getting in trouble with human resources, you get fired, and there you go, you've destroyed yourself. And in the meantime, the lefty at work gets to tell his friends, oh, isn't it a shame that so-and-so ended up getting fired? Wow. Well, if the guy had been more of a lefty like us, it wouldn't have happened. Or if he hadn't overreacted, if he hadn't have been so stupid, whatever, it wouldn't have happened. The point is, his hands are clean. He's the one that provoked you. He's the one that created this whole problem in the first place. He walks away scot-free. You end up without a job. And the same idea is here with Donald Trump. The idea is to provoke him, to get him to resign. If he resigns, it is tantamount to a confession. He is thereby confessing to every crime the Democrats and the left accuses him of. And it's sealed forever. There's nothing else he can do about that. He's doomed at that particular point. I think Donald Trump knows this, if not explicitly, then implicitly. And that's why he avoids resignation, why I believe he won't end up resigning. And he shouldn't. But, again, the people that are going to provoke him then have clean hands. You can't run for re-election as an executioner. You can't run for re-election with blood on your hands. Okay, if you go out and you impeach the president and he's removed from office, you're going to have to go to the voters and justify it. Yes, I voted to impeach the president of the United States, but it's okay because you don't want to have to do that. You want to be able to say, gee, isn't it a tragedy that President Trump had to resign? But, he was a bad guy and a bad president, so we're all better off without him. And then you just go on with your campaign. Much smoother that way. So again, that's what I sense that Mr. Cuomo is doing, is just trying to ratchet up more pressure on the president and encourage him to resign. Now, the president understands this, like I said, implicitly, if not explicitly, and what he does to counteract the psychological pressure that's being put on him by the left is he goes out and has rallies. I firmly believe that's the main reason why he has rallies. he doesn't have, as Bill O'Reilly noted the other day, he really doesn't have any other outlets except golf. He works all the time. He puts in 14, 16 hours a day, whatever. Doesn't sleep all that much. And you would think that with all this pressure, there's more than anyone else could bear. The reason that it isn't too much for Donald Trump, number one, he realizes that it's BS. He knows that it's a psychological pressure. And number two, he deals with that pressure by having the rallies. I mean, I could deal with anything you can throw at me if I'm able to go out, fill a stadium with 20,000 cheering fans that are screaming my name and yelling 4 more years. And that's the secret, and that's why Donald Trump is able to deal with the pressure. But make no mistake about it, whether it's the talk of impeachment or what Mr. Cuomo is doing here, the whole purpose is to exert enough pressure on Donald Trump to get him to resign, which he shouldn't do, and I hope he doesn't. Okay, so when I come back, I'm going to be reading Our Election System versus Pure Democracy from the current issue of AMAC magazine. Well, in a second here. There we go. Thank you very much. In this month's issue of AMAC magazine, I am going to be reading, they have a great article that's about the direct democracy versus the current system that we have right now. There's apparently a movement afoot to try to find a way to circumvent the electoral college system and go for a let's see, here we go. Let's see. I had it open, I had it all set, ready to go, and then I screwed it up. There it is. But anyway, so let's just go to the article. An alarming movement is crossing the country, one that threatens the foundation of our presidential election system. State legislatures are being pressed to endorse the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact and ignore the democratic and constitutional electoral college voting procedure in all future presidential elections. If enacted, the compact would leave the election of a president to high-population states and forever disenfranchise voters in less populous states. In calling for such an unprecedented electoral upheaval, and the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact supporters say the Electoral College is undemocratic, and so the country needs to instead follow a one-person, one-vote approach to choosing the nation's highest elected official. Now, right away, I see a flaw there. I say it's undemocratic. That's right, it's not. It's Republican, because that's what we live in. We live in a republic. Now, if you don't like that, there's a method of changing it, and it's called a constitutional amendment. But you don't try to slide around the constitutional amendment. When you do that, you become a domestic enemy. Remember that everybody that in military members, when I was in the military, we swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Back to the article. Here's what we should understand about our framers' Constitution and elections. America was formed as a federal republic composed of United States with all powers not specifically vested in the federal government reserved for the states. One of the key democratic elements in our republic is the Electoral College. And the most difficult issue facing the founders during the 1787 Constitutional Convention was direct elections. And after much debate, ending in the Great Compromise, they settled on the current system. Under the current system, each state decides how their electors will vote for the president. The typical format varies by state, but generally electors are chosen at state party conventions prior to the presidential election. And then in December, after the November popular election votes have been tallied, each state's electors meet and cast their winner-take-all vote. The framers designed this unique presidential system to avoid the pitfalls of other failed democracies. Not perfect, but a huge improvement. And the bottom line is the people in the states are given control of their national government. The many potential dangers in adopting the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact is it is likely unconstitutional. It would increase voter fraud, destroy federalism, promise chaotic elections, would effectively eliminate small states and their voters from presidential elections. It would be the effective death of our republic, and it would inherently increase the shift of power and prestige from Congress to the executive branch, and would eliminate the two-party system. The National Popular Vote Interstate Compact is trying to bypass the Constitution to neutralize the Electoral College. Currently, the Constitution can only be changed through Article 5 with 3/4 of the states approving. Instead, this is an initiative that would go into effect as soon as states cumulatively possessing a majority of the electoral votes needed to win an election join the compact. Essentially, this would give the voters of as few as 11 states control over the outcome of presidential elections and give the most populous states a controlling majority of the Electoral College. Following European countries, the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact would expand the number of political parties. Now, he doesn't say exactly how that's going to happen. Maybe what he's insisting is that basically what the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact would do is create a semi-parliamentary style system. And in parliamentary style systems, you very often have 5, 6, 8, 10, who knows how many different political parties. John F. Kennedy equated dismantling the Electoral College to taking one planet out of the whole solar system and watching the whole structure change. So we must educate certain state legislators on the dangers of direct voting, and you can help us protect the uniqueness of our Constitution and America by volunteering with AMAC Action in your state's congressional district. Contact the AMAC Action staff at info@amacaction.org or call 855-809-6976. Now, the article, as it was written, was rather on the weak side. Again, he followed the kind of more or less neutral. It could have been written much stronger. It was written by Michael Kopek, and it could have been written much stronger because basically what they're trying to do is do an end run around the Constitution. The left always does this. Again, the left doesn't want to destroy the Constitution. They want the people of the United States to destroy it or for it to destroy itself. And what they want to do is go around it and have everybody, the citizens, going around the Constitution so many times that eventually the left can get to the point where they say, hey, why have a Constitution? We're not even paying attention to it anymore. We're completely disregarding the Constitution. We shouldn't have it. Let's just go ahead and move to a parliamentary style system or rule by decree, which would then put us into a socialist system for sure. So that's what he should have been, the direction this article should have been taking, is that this is a big threat to not only to our republic and to Republican-style government. It's a way of acing Republicans out of the picture and making only Democrats count, but it's a step in the direction of not even being democratic anymore, just going ahead and being one-party rule and rule by decree. And that was Our Election System versus Pure Democracy in the current issue of AMAC magazine. When I come back, I'll read a selection about America's greatest generation. Thank you very much, and welcome back. The greatest generation in American history was not the World War II generation, but the generation of men that came of age in the 40 years after the Civil War. People like Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, Jay Gould, and J.P. Morgan. And so now this section, yesterday I read an introduction from the book called The Tycoons, and now I'm going to be reading a section called Carnegie. And it's all about Andrew Carnegie, who ran U.S. Steel. Andrew Carnegie was the most irritating of tycoons, a petite 5'3", tow-headed, with small hands and feet and a boyish face, he was a tireless bundle of bouncing, gabbling energy. Opinionated and obsequious, fawning and provocative, quick in apprehension of anything that would advance his interests. His rise is the canonical American rags to riches tale. Carnegie's father was a displaced Scottish handloom weaver, and the family emigrated to Pittsburgh when Andrew was 13. Andrew zipped through jobs as a bobbin boy, a bookkeeper's clerk, and a telegraph delivery boy, where he picked up telegraphy by watching the operators. He quickly became the business community's favorite telegrapher, and then a one-man wire service, compiling each day's telegraphic news with reports for Pittsburgh's newspapers. He was as relentless in self-improvement as in everything else, reading voraciously and working hard on his accent and grammar. Let me see. The Carnegies were non-believers, but Andrew still inherited a strong Calvinist aversion to fleshly pleasures. He was immensely charming and had many friendly associations with women, but probably no intimacy until he finally married a few months after his mother's death to a young lady who had waited years for that blessed event. Andrew's big break came when he was 17 in the person of Tom Scott, who became his business hero. Scott was one of the era's great railroad executives. Since Scott did so much work by telegraph, he and Carnegie shared an office, and the flows of messages allowed Carnegie almost to inhale the essence of the railroad business. Had Carnegie spent his career at the Pennsylvania Railroad, there's no question that he would have been one of the greatest railroad executives of the age. Let's see. Carnegie plunged into his new job. He got a new job as superintendent of the Western Division. He kept a telegraph station in his home and was on the railroad lines day and night, supervising repairs, rerouting traffic, shoring up system weak points, instinctively grasping, as few railroad men had, that the core challenge was to keep traffic flowing. Shortly after his appointment, he shocked fellow executives by burning stalled cars to clear lines. It was a classic Carnegie technique, and car burning was soon a standard method for clearing stalled trains. The next year, when Scott was appointed U.S. Assistant Secretary of War for Railroad and Telegraph Services, he naturally brought Carnegie with him. By the early 1860s, Carnegie was already a rich man. And Carnegie was so spectacularly talented with his extraordinary intelligence and dead-accurate Scott's practicality, his energy, his immense charm, his feline instinct for a deal, that he simply overmatched everyone else. He was also far better read than most of his peers, with an acquired but genuine taste for art and culture, and an attractive writing style. Let's see. Carnegie was, a few years after Carnegie retired from Pennsylvania, he became one of the Morgan Bank's favorite clients, although his relationship with Junius Morgan, Pierpoint's father, became one of Morgan Bank's favorite clients, although his relationship was with Junius Morgan, Pierpoint's father, for he did not get on with Pierpont. In the long run, he bested Pierpont, as he did almost everyone else. The crowning deal of Morgan's long career was his buyout of the Carnegie Company in 1901 to create the United States Steel Corporation. In constant dollars, it was the biggest corporate transaction in history until the buyout boom of the 1980s. Indeed, over a long career, the only fellow tycoon who fully matched up with Carnegie in a business setting was the man he liked to call Rockefellos. And that'll be for next time, is reading this section on Rockefeller. And conservatives I'm reading this because conservatives need to be reminded of what it is that we stand for, what it is that we fight for, not just what it is we are opposed to. So, back in a minute. Thank you, and in conclusion, I've outlined the political platform of the true conservative, browsed the headlines, read Our Election System versus Pure Democracy from the current issue of AMAC magazine, and read about the greatest generation in American history. And one more word about the greatest generation. Part of the reason I'm reading this is too many conservatives act like liberals by worshiping government and government figures. They claim that our founding fathers were politicians, that the greatest generation were people that were in the military, i.e. part of the government, and thereby the government was the point. So I want to remind people that conservatism is about individualism and is about business and capitalism and private enterprise. And so that's why the true heroes of the United States of America are people like Andrew Carnegie. So who is the true conservative? He's the person that understands that conservatism is not just about politics, but culture as well. He's not selfish, but minds his own business. He acts like an adult. He's patriotic and uses common sense. He expresses what he knows and does so with absolute certainty. He makes judgments, refuses to speculate, speaks clearly and definitively, and is not afraid to say no. He's open-minded, asking why rather than why not. He's consistent, credible, and influential, not ashamed of his existence, unafraid to learn or correct his mistakes. He is a normal American, and he is better than the socialist. He is a better friend, father, brother, family member, and a better person, period. You have to know that. If you don't know with every fiber of your being that being a true conservative is best, then you're lost. And that brings me to the conclusion of another episode of The Drill. Remember that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win. True conservatives know that nothing is inevitable. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.